Danny Flexon here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined once again by Lou DiBella for DiBella's Digest. And Lou, as I always ask, how's your week been?
I've had 2 consecutive weeks dominated by baseball, which is wonderful. I was in Richmond last week. I was in Montgomery, Alabama this week. I just got back. I have a family event tomorrow. Tonight, I have a big show in the Nashville area with Heather Hardy, Return to the Ring on UFC Fight Pass. It's been a good couple of weeks, and it's a beautiful day here today, and I'm okay. And I got a birthday coming this next few days, so I'm getting into take a little bit of a birthday thing for a couple of days kind of mode. But I'm good. I'm good. Now we were right about Canelo's late stoppage.
Yeah. I don't think either of us expected it to come exactly the way it did, huh?
No, I mean, I sort of thought it would, I didn't think it was going to come with that kind of a damage done to him, but I thought he was going to win a couple of rounds and be able to, frustrate Canelo a little bit. That happened. But I thought it would be a clear-cut win for Canelo, and I had it 6-2 after the eighth round. And the stoppage in the, whatever you want to call it, the eighth, the ninth between rounds,
yeah.
I thought that was very sort of predictable. I thought that was the eighth to the 11th is where I thought the window was going to be of a knockout.
Did anything about Canelo's performance impress you where it hadn't in the past? Was there anything new from Canelo in your view?
No, but he doesn't. He's getting better. If anything, he's getting better. I mean, he's timing things perfectly. He's very, very strong physically. I mean, there's no question that this version at 168, 175 of Canelo Alvarez is a puncher. There's no question. Yeah. And he's still, even Billy Joe, as we always said, Billy Joe's a tough style to beat, and Billy Joe's a terrific boxer. Okay. Canelo wasn't getting outboxed by Saunders. Do you know what I mean? So you have to say that the guy's the whole package. I mean, if I'm surprised by anything, Danny, it's by how good he is right now and how clearly. I mean, I don't want to hear from hipsters or millennials that Inoue or Japanese people that Inoue is pound for pound anywhere comparable at the moment. I mean, I think Canelo's just dominant in so many ways at a number of weights. And at the moment, I don't see Inouye's competition to Canelo. I think Canelo's pound for pound, and everybody's fighting for number 2, including Inoue.
I agree. And there's one piece left in the puzzle for Canelo at 168. It's obviously the IBF title held by Caleb Plant. He wants that. Canelo wants that in September. How difficult or not do you see that to being made, first of all?
I think it should be able to be made if they really want it. I mean, I personally think Canelo beats Caleb Plant, but I think it's a legitimate fight. I think Caleb Plant's style is more difficult than some people believe, and he's a pretty skilled boxer. So I don't think it's less of a challenge than Billy Joe Saunders posed. It's also a total unification of it's a unification fight in the division. I should never say it's a total unification because it's never true anymore, but it's a unification fight in the division. I think it's makeable. Where is Caleb Plant ever going to see the kind of money he can get to fight Canelo?
True.
And unless someone has an answer for that, then I think you have to assume that we're going to see the fight.
I guess the only reason it'd be more difficult than Saunders was because Canelo entered into that 2-fight deal with DAZN. They gave him that kind of Yildirim gimme, if you like, with the understanding that Saunders would be next. Caleb Plant fights through PBC, certainly at the moment, and has done in recent times. Could we see Canelo on PBC?
Here's my view. I actually think Eddie's being totally straight on something, okay, here, because he's basically said that the zone's going to be very aggressive to make a purchase to fight, and I think they should. They just had a big night, from what I heard, on subscriber growth, from what I've read in various social media and elsewhere. That apparently there was a really good night for sub growth, and they also know that Caleb Plant and PBC know how to do pay-per-view. Showtime and Fox can do pay-per-view, both of them, and or either. And Canelo has a certain bottom line value. I mean, you can pretty much estimate what kind of money would be generated on pay-per-view. So, DAZN, I mean, it's going to be who puts up the most money, but I believe the fight will happen. That'd be my guess. Caleb Plant can't make more money elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, he's been quite vocal on social media in the past week, obviously trying to up his value a little bit, saying, he doesn't want any more than he's worth, but he won't accept any less. And he believes he should get more than both Callum Smith and Billy Joe Saunders. He was quoted as saying Eddie Hearn sold those guys out, and he puts a bit more value on himself.
I don't know what they paid those guys, but I've been hearing numbers in the $6 to $8 million range for Caleb, for both of them.
Yeah, I think Saunders was 8 and Callum was 5.5, 6.
You should thank Eddie. And that I'm not doing him any favors, but they should thank him, because I mean, where was Saunders ever making anywhere near that? Where was Smith ever making anywhere near that? And where will Caleb Plant ever make anything near what he's going to get? Now, by the way, should he get more than them? He's had more TV time. It's a subscriber thing, not only for the youth. I believe Canelo's a worldwide star now. I believe that the Brits are going to buy a big Canelo event too, particularly if Eddie puts Brits on the undercard, right? So Caleb Plant's bigger in the United States by far than Saunders or Smith. And he's had more exposures on bigger platforms than either Smith or. So do I think he's worth more? I don't disagree with him. I do think he's worth more. However, I think he can get more.
Yeah, I mean, I guess having that last belt of the major four and knowing that's Canelo's stated objective, he can kind of hold them to ransom, or at least leverage the belt.
Some leverage. And by the way, he's got some leverage. They'd be stupid to hold anyone to ransom because you don't have someone that's going to outbid you elsewhere. But do I think it's outrageous if they go to the table and they're looking for $10 million? No. Probably not. I don't know. I'm not negotiating someone else's deal. But do I think Caleb Plant is being ridiculous? No, I think he's being a smart kid. He's being a good businessman. He's saying, okay, this guy got made rich and this guy got made rich, and I'm a little bit bigger than both of them. And you're trying to win my belt to unify the whole division and get even. I think it's even the ring belt would be at stake, right? Also. So it's every piece of hardware. That's a little bit of leverage.
In what ways do you think Caleb Plant poses questions to Canelo that Saunders didn't? Is it kind of size and power mostly?
Yeah, mostly size and power. I actually think his style's a little bit easier, though, than Saunders. I mean, I'm not saying I respect Caleb Plant, and I worked with him, and he's a great kid, and I wish I would have signed him years ago when I had the chance. He's a really good fighter. And I've always thought that he would be one of the guys, Caleb Plant, Benavides. I thought Saunders his style be a little bit difficult, but you know what? Canelo made it easy work because Canelo's that good. Now, looking at the Canelo I've seen recently, do I see Caleb Plant beating Canelo? No. Do I think Caleb Plant belongs in a fight? Yes. And I think that for Canelo's standpoint, it's completely reasonable to say, I want to totally unify my weight class. I want to have all those belts, including the ring belt. I want to totally unify the weight class. So I have nothing inherently against that fight. And I believe that my gut tells me that Eddie and DAZN will figure out a way to keep the fight on DAZN. That's my gut. But if it went pay-per-view, I still think that they'd be enough money to pay everybody. And now we're opened up again in the States. If Canelo fought Caleb Plant and Cowboy Stadium, it'll do 85,000.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? So I actually think that there's money there to pay everybody. And my guess would be September around Mexican Independence Day that you're going to see Caleb Plant against Canelo. That's my guess. I'm not going to tell you I'm positive where it's going to be, but my gut tells me that Eddie and the guys at DAZN are going to hustle to do what they have to keep the fight there.
And although we talk about the leverage that Caleb Plant's got, it's a huge opportunity for him potentially as well. Even if he doesn't win, if he puts in a creditable performance, so many more people know who he is, and he's in line for future massive fights as well.
Yeah, it's true. But you can make this. You could have made the same argument about Saunders, and he may not fight again.
I mean, that is a big risk, of course.
Right. So you're fighting a destructive guy. You're fighting a real guy. But that being said, Caleb's a big, strong kid, man. Caleb's one of the at 68. Caleb's one of the bigger, stronger guys Canelo will have faced, at 60, 68. Now, he fought Kovalev, but honestly, Kovalev was Shotsky at that point in time. Canelo was a different level of athlete at a different point in his career. I mean, do I think that the 75-pounders would be easy work for Canelo? I think Canelo right now is at his prime, at his right weight, which is another reason why you unify when you're still at your prime at that right weight.
So what does he do?
I think Caleb Plant has nothing to lose. I think Caleb Plant's going to make a good account of himself, and even if I think he'll find his way to another belt if he loses the belt.
So if Canelo does win, unifies all the belts, undisputed champion, as you said, in his prime, in his correct weight, does he stay there? Are there big enough fights at 168, or does he need to move up to 175 for big fights?
I don't think he needs to move up at all, because I think there are big fights that will emerge involving 60-pounders that can move to a catch weight. There are fights that could emerge involving guys that are presently very big, young 54-pounders. He's talking about fighting another 5 years, 6 years, whatever. So I mean, you're going to have guys emerging for Canelo to fight that you're not even aware of. If he moves beyond 68, I mean, he's not a heavyweight. He's not a cruiserweight. I mean, look, right now, I think I don't give a shit about Canelo fighting Bivol or somebody else at 75. Would I watch Canelo against Joe Smith Jr.? Well, I love Joe Smith Jr., so I might. You know what I mean? I mean, do I think that that's a reasonable way for Canelo to win a light heavyweight belt? It's a way that Canelo's going to be favored to win a light heavyweight belt, but there's going to be no question that Joe Smith Jr. with that tree-cutting knockout power would have the proverbial puncher's chance. It'd also be a bit of a Rocky story. A guy that's a world champion that still works on the side cutting down trees is fighting the biggest fighter in boxing. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Bratirbiev, because even though he didn't look so great in his last fight, he's probably the most destructive of the light heavyweight champions. So if Canelo wants to make his point and move up to light heavyweight for a fight, and go back down, maybe you fight the guy that's perceived as the biggest guy in the division, and then you don't have to stay at light heavyweight. You go wherever you want. You're the star,
Under 175, so 160, 168, who do you feel is the biggest threat to Canelo currently?
I think Benavidez could become it. I think he needs a little bit more seasoning. He needs a little less distraction in his career. He can punch, and he's strong. He also throws some punches. If he can even increase his output, I think he could be a guy that at least gives Canelo an interesting battle. That's how I would view that.
Good stuff. Well, Lou, really appreciate the insight as always. There's not really any massive fights to preview this weekend to kind of see how wise we were after the event, unfortunately. There's Nery Figueroa. I'm guessing we'd both be backing Nery in that one, but correct me if I'm wrong, obviously.
No, you're right. I think Nery in that fight. So, I mean, we could do some more predicting in the future where there's a bigger weekend.
Yeah, 100%. All right, well, enjoy your week.
My friend.
Happy birthday in advance. And we can talk about your celebrations next week, if you survive, of course.
If I survive. I will. I will survive.